The Pope is the Bishop of Rome, and for Western Christians, he has had a significance. A lot of Catholics would say he's the head of the church. No, he's the head of the Western church. There's also all the Eastern churches, the African churches. He is the head of the Christians who are based in Europe. He became a central figure for Christians who were based in Western Europe, the old Latin-speaking lands, in the 4th century. But then in the 16th century, a group of people said, we can be Christians, but we do not need the Pope. And so that's the great split. So among those that looked to Western European Christianity and who would not call themselves Protestants, but Catholics, this office holds a central role.
If he's the Bishop of Rome, why is he more important than all the other bishops of other cities and other places?
You have to distinguish between two things. There is what's the real story about the role of the Pope and what's the sort of general perception on the streets. In the general perception of the streets, he's the equivalent of the commander-in-chief. So it's up the pyramid, right? And he's on the top pyramid. In point of fact, if you ask someone like me, the official theory is he is the centre of all the other centres. So he's, as it were, the one who forms the web between. Each bishop leads a church. But to keep all the Western bishops linked together, they need a focus. And the Bishop of Rome, because Rome was the central city for the West, is the focus bishop of the rest. So it's more a flat network with him at the centre rather than a pyramid and the Bishop of Rome at the top.
So he has no power over the other bishops and that?
Over the last 800 years, the Bishop of Rome the papacy, the Pope, has developed. In other words, if everyone is telling you you're at the top of the pyramid, you might as well start acting like that. And beginning with popes like Innocent III in the late 12th, early 13th century, they have been aggrandizing power and making themselves more and more central. So de facto, but not in theory, the Bishop of Rome appoints the other bishops and acts as the commander-in-chief. So one of the big debates within Catholicism, and it's a debate that's been going on for centuries, is if everyone is acting like it's a pyramid, well, should we see it as a pyramid? And there are some who say, well, let's go with the flow. And then there are lots of other people who would say, no, this is how it's grown up, but this is not really how it should be.
But I mean, the Catholic Church has a lot of money, it has a lot of influence. They must have some rules written down. There must be some written rules somewhere from where the Pope derives this power.
Oh, the rules are all written down, and the rules are written down in a book called the Code of Canon Law, which is in legal terms, it's a code system. In other words, you have a book with all the rules in it, and then that is interpreted by church courts and by lawyers. So yes, if someone wants to see all the rules and regulations, they're all there in the Code of Canon Law. In any system where there is a central function, and the central function is the Bishop of Rome, to coordinate all the other dioceses, because let's face it, if there isn't a central focus, things tend to split up into ever smaller parts. But the more that people look towards a centre, the more the centre tends to grow into the pinnacle of a pyramid. And once you've got a pyramid, it's very easy to understand it. It's very easy to think in terms, like for instance, most governments are a pyramid. Universities tend to be pyramids. Armies are perfect pyramids. And so since pyramid control is very easy to understand, and younger people tend to look up to older people, and smaller people tend to look to bigger people and all that, it's one of the constant temptations of organizations, which should be more or less flat, to go into pyramids. And what's happened with the papacy is centuries of people looking to it and it gathering power has turned it into a very rigid pyramid. And then once it's a pyramid, it's very easy to see. So who's the head of the United States? Barack Obama. Who's the head of the Catholic Church? Benedict XVI. And the media can just put up a picture of Barack Obama and a picture of Benedict. And then you think, oh, well, who's the head of the army? Who's the greatest general? And so it's a bit like that. And then if you're a religious leader and you're seen to be at the top of a pyramid, you become a sort of a cult figure. So people say, and he goes from just being the bishop to being the Holy Father. And people suddenly start talking in hushed terms. Just as in a monarchy, people will talk about hushed terms about about the Queen. You know, Cameron comes and goes, but the Queen and people. So there's an element of natural deference that comes up, and religious people will tend to defer to religious leaders. So there's lots of things going on in human society and in Christian society that tend towards making the Pope into the super commander-in-chief, rather than recognizing he is another bishop whose key thing is to form a focus of unity between all the different bishops, who are the real churches to which a Christian like I would belong. I act and live in only just one place, you know.
So if the Pope is someone who's almost created by this culture of celebrity, this culture of wanting someone to put on the TV, what actual powers does he have, rightly or wrongly? Doesn't he appoint the cardinals? Doesn't he appoint bishops? Like, that sounds like other bishops don't have that power.
Yes, he in the Latin Church today, the Pope, the Latin Church today, which is the parts of it which are Catholic, and that, so you might be in Australia, you might know a word of Latin, but if you're a Catholic, you belong to Latin Christendom. Yes, the Pope has all of this power, but one of the great debates within Catholicism, and one of the great debates at the Second Vatican Council, and one of the great debates going on today, is about just because it's ended up that way, is that really the way it should be? And for instance, there's a big petition which has been signed by nearly 200 theologians, precisely on calling into question. It's a petition called Authority in the Church, and it's precisely saying that this pyramid structure, it grew up by accident, and now everyone thinks it should be there, but maybe all these things need to be brought back down and made more level again.
The church is a Christian organisation, and as far as I know, most Christians, when they look to guidance, where they look to what they should be doing here on earth, they can either pray and hope that God tells them directly, or they look to the Bible. What does the Bible say about this? Does the Bible say, "Thou shalt have a pope"?
If you are a Catholic, you will read the scriptures in a particular way, and you will see in the scriptures texts which you will then apply to the Pope. But if you're a Greek Christian, you will read those texts completely differently, and they never developed a Pope. If you're a Coptic Christian, you will read those texts and you will think of them relating to the Pope who is the Pope in Egypt, who was just elected a couple of months ago. So the religious group to which you belong, you will look back to the texts, and you will be able to, once you know where you are today, you can always find your roots back in the past, and that's the way they will do it.
Individual agendas. Now, of course, one can't be naive about these things. There are a lot of individual agendas going on.